Please become a Patreon and support the show. Merci.
And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
This week, we are joined by John Lawrence Rivera, who is returning to Animal Farm. John is the artistic director of Playwrights Arena, which is currently producing a socially distanced outdoor production of a new play called Waiting, a riff on Waiting for Godot. John has also been in on the weekly meetings of the artistic directors across Los Angeles, and he is here to give us an update on how the theaters are coping with the Delta variant and the pandemic that will just not go away. John Lawrence Rivera, welcome back to Animal Farm.
Thank you for having me. My goodness, I'm so happy to be back.
Well, since we spoke, the last time you were the first guest, the inaugural guest, and that was almost 40 shows ago, 40 weeks ago. And then we were in the middle of an awful pandemic, and here we are today. And guess
it's
what?
Still in the middle.
Yes, we were harboring the illusion that we were back to normal about 4 weeks ago, but we are clearly not back to normal. Just to update, Playwrights Arena, of which you are the artistic director, is presenting a play right now called Waiting. It's a spin on Waiting for Godot, and you're doing it outdoors in the Atwater Village courtyard.
Yeah.
And it holds about 30 seats. Before we get to your role in these weekly community discussions, let me know what reactions you've had and how this has affected your attendance and the whole mindset of the company moving forward.
When we started rehearsals about like late June, there was a beginning of a plateau that was happening where people could go indoors into grocery stores without a mask.
Yes.
There was a lot of opening up into into the way that we function. And so we were already thinking about, okay, well, maybe people are not quite ready to go indoors, but we should certainly do a performance outdoors and maybe limit it to like 30 people so that there's distancing in that. But of course, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been like mandates again to wear masks indoors, and the cases have been going up. And so I think audiences is a little bit more cautious these days as far as like attending anything that has strangers around, whether it's outdoors or indoors. And I think the only saving grace that we have is that we are outdoors, and we do assure our audience that they will be separated. If you have a ticket for 2, then we put the 2 of you together, but then there's about a 6 feet distance between you and the next person. And also that even though the CDC, at least right now, says that you don't need to wear a mask outdoors, we are recommending our audience to wear them. And I think that really helps the audience feel like there's a real safety in attending our performances. So that has been the response that we've been getting during the run of the show. This is our second week, and the audiences are feel like it's great to be outdoors and see everybody around them wearing masks.
Yes. I'm just curious about what, as a matter of policy, and I know the policy shifts week to week, but how you deal with conflicting information. And I'll give an example. The kind of information I've gotten just from within the last week, headline in either the New York Times or the Washington Post, that the Pfizer has said that its vaccine remains completely viable after 6 months. The next day, there is a new study out that says after 6 months, it is only 65 to 85% effective. One headline says that the effects, if you are fully vaccinated, even if you contract the virus, are pretty minor, comparatively minor compared to if you're not vaccinated. And yet we are seeing huge numbers of people who are getting really pretty sick from this. Now, they're not being intubated, they're not dying, but they're still, this is nasty. This is not like your common case of the flu still. And the other thing, of course, is that if you live with somebody who is vulnerable, that you can have the virus, being fully vaccinated, not know it, be asymptomatic. And now it is very clear that you are fully capable of bringing that virus home to an elderly or to somebody who is more vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is it's scary. I mean, it's scary for me, I mean, even if, just in my daily life of even going to the market or something. And I think it's the ongoing different news that we get, and there isn't anything that's really certain about when it's ending, how we, I mean, whether we're actually going to be safe. And I think that's why most of the theaters are starting to really, think differently about how we're opening up our theaters. Maybe 3 weeks ago, we were all, very much, or for most of us, are very much interested in opening up our indoor theaters by October or November of this year. And because of these news and the cases that are happening, the last conversations we've had in our meetings last week, there's a lot of people who were already planning to do it in October or November are now rethinking of reopening in February or March of next year, just because there's just too many things that are unknown. And I mean, obviously, to me, I feel like any vaccine, whether it's 65% effective or not, is still much better than having zero, protection. And unfortunately, there's a lot of other people who don't feel that way and they don't get vaccinated. And that's when it's really hard to contain, this epidemic, because it's, there are still about almost 50% of the population who's just like not interested in getting the vaccine.
That's the U.S. population.
Yes, the U.S. population. That is correct.
In Los Angeles County, it's a bit better, but not,
That's right.
but not great.
Yeah.
Not great. It's in the 60%.
We're not in Florida or anything like that. So, at least in California, we are a much better, in trying to get a handle of this. But, I think people overall, because of the news that you've been saying, get really, scared. I mean, I got a phone call from somebody in New York the other day, and he's talking about getting a booster shot, just because, he said he finished his second shot in February, and it's now, August, and he says, well, I think I need to get a booster shot or something, because they're afraid that, it's wearing off and it needs something else to, to have more protection. So.
This may be the new normal, that this thing is going to be around for years. Simply because that 40%, even in Los Angeles, and it's the over 50% across the country who are inviting the virus to mutate. And here we go again with a whole different thing that the vaccine or the booster may or may not address. So the question is, how does a theater, especially whose fiscal support from the COVID relief packages has now been spent on rent and on other factors, and there's no more coming. How do they keep their doors open?
Well, that's the big question, right? I mean, I think a lot of us are very worried. We've already experienced this last March, April, right? We were in productions, people were in the middle of a production or about to open shows, and all of a sudden we had to shut down. And so
you're talking about April 2021, not April 20.
Yeah. I mean, it was really March and April of 2020 when we had to shut down. And we cannot go back and do that kind of, be in that situation again. So we're all tiptoeing as to like, what is the best way to commit to a production and yet feel like, we were not going to lose our shirt, because like you said, a lot of the grants that a lot of the theaters have received during the pandemic, is now going to be extinct and we won't be able to get more money, and how do we survive? And I think it's really about being we're almost like reading this, like, tea leaves, and we're trying to figure out, like, are we
Yes.
going to,
Yes.
and tea leaves are never concrete. So you just go, does that mean I can open in February, or does that mean like March? And so it is really hard. And I think we all are just literally trying to, like, step lightly forward and trying to figure out, like, what is the next step. But we certainly don't want to get trapped where we stepped into something and it's a quicksand and we just, like,
Right.
go again, But I think that until there is a firm response from the CDC and the county that says we are over this, we got everything taken care of, until that happens, I think we're always going to be tiptoeing until we know for sure.
So I think yeah. So I think the key is to enjoy your cup of tea and save the leaves, because in those leaves, that's about the best we can do.
That's right. It is exactly what it is. I mean, whatever the New York Times says today is different tomorrow.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true.
Like the tea leaves, you go, well, does that mean this? Oh, it means something else, because it's not ever really concrete, So
Well, Britain's answer.
what is that?
Well, they have opened up completely and their cases are down. But that, of course, ignores the fact that they have almost completely stopped testing over there.
Yeah.
So the numbers are down because they're not.
That's right. They're not testing. So then how do you know for sure?
So we're living in a world with, there may be widespread disease and nobody knows about it because it's not being tested for, which is yet another source of apprehension.
Yeah, and also, Broadway just announced that all of their audiences has to now has proof of vaccination, which I think it's gonna go nationally. I mean, I think other theaters now in LA, I think even the Taper CTG announced that they will, when they reopen in October or November, that they would require proof of vaccination. But the thing is, the vaccination cards, any prop person can make that, can do that. And just like, I mean, it's so easy to replicate and just do something I mean, if people can get a fake driver's license, they can certainly get a fake, COVID, card and say, yeah, I've been vaccinated. So I just, I just don't know really how we're going to take a hold of this, because the worst thing is that we go and see a performance of Hamilton at the Pantages, and all of a sudden 50% of the audience, 10%, whatever it takes, all of a sudden are sick because of being around, and all of a sudden we got to shut down. And once that's shut down, CTG shuts down, the theater shuts down, and we're back into waiting to reopen again, which has already been a strain for all of us, not being able to do anything for the last, 15 months or so.
Yeah. John, I wish this conversation were more uplifting, but given it isn't, I really do appreciate you being so candid and being so honest.
Yeah.
And with that, I thank you for returning to Animal Farm. It was good to have you back.
Anytime. I love talking with you, and it's always been a pleasure to just share some of what's going on in the community.
Next week, we're joined by performer, playwright, and activist Michael Kearns. A collection of 3 of Michael's plays was recently published. Michael is an artistic associate at the Skylight Theatre Company. He's artist in residence of Housing Works. He's artistic director of Queer Works and West Coast program director of Spoken Interludes Next.